The war had been over for decades, or at least that's what the Galactic Alliance believed. In the heart of deep space, a massive alien warship drifted near the ruins of an old battlefield. The wreckage of countless human and alien ships floated in silence, a graveyard of forgotten warriors. The Alliance fleet patrolled lazily, their commanders confident that no human ships had survived. Admiral Carvox, a high-ranking officer of the Xilari Empire, stood on the bridge of his flagship. His four glowing eyes scanned the vast emptiness outside. The war against humanity had been brutal, but it was over now. No human fleets remained. No human soldiers to fight. Earth itself was a burned husk, abandoned long ago. He turned to his crew and spoke with satisfaction. It has been 40 years since the last human resistance was crushed. The galaxy belongs to us now. His officers nodded in agreement. There was no sign of humans anywhere. The enemy was extinct. Or so they thought. Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared an alarm. A massive energy signature had appeared on the edge of their detection range. It was unlike anything they had seen before. "Report," Carvox barked. A young officer's hands trembled as he read the data. "Sir, something is coming out of deep space. It's massive." Carvox frowned. "A ship. Whose?" The officer hesitated. "Unknown, sir, but it matches ancient human dreadnought designs." Silence fell over the bridge. Impossible. No human dreadnoughts had survived. The Alliance had destroyed them all. "Confirm that reading," Carvox ordered, his voice sharp. Another officer checked. "Confirmed, sir. It's a human warship, but it's bigger than anything we've ever seen." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The battlefield had been quiet for decades. There was no way a human ship could still be out there. And yet, the sensors didn't lie. The mysterious ship drifted closer, moving without any visible propulsion. It made no transmissions, no signs of life, just a silent, unstoppable approach. Carvox clenched his fists. "Send a warning. Tell them to identify themselves." A transmission was sent. No response. Seconds passed, then minutes. The dreadnought continued its path, unbothered, uncaring. It was as if it did not recognize the Galactic Alliance as a threat. Panic began to spread among the crew. One officer whispered, "Sir, what if the war isn't over?" Carvox glared at him. "Don't be ridiculous. Humanity is gone." But as the massive dreadnought loomed closer, its dark hull reflecting the shattered remains of the battlefield, a terrifying thought gripped the Admiral's mind. What if humanity had never lost? The dreadnought loomed closer, its massive form swallowing the stars behind it. The Galactic Alliance fleet had fought many wars, but nothing about this ship made sense. It had no energy signatures, no communication signals, yet it moved with an eerie purpose. Admiral Carvox clenched his mandibles. "Hail them again." A second transmission was sent. Still, no response. "Try scanning the interior," he ordered. The officers rushed to obey, but the results left them stunned. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "No life signs detected. No crew. But the ship is fully operational." Carvox's eyes widened. A fully functional human dreadnought, moving without a crew. His mind raced. Was this an automated war machine, built to continue the war even after humanity's fall? His second-in-command, Commander Jovic, spoke in a hushed voice. "Sir, I studied ancient human warfare. They had legends about ships like this." Carvox turned sharply. "Explain." Jovic swallowed. "They called them ghost ships. Warships that vanished into deep space during the final battles, only to reappear when their enemies thought themselves safe." A shiver ran through the crew. They had all heard stories of humanity's ruthless war tactics, how humans never truly surrendered, how they used deception to their advantage. But those were just myths, weren't they? The dreadnought finally stopped, holding its position like a silent predator watching its prey. Carvox refused to be intimidated. "Arm weapons. Target the dreadnought." His officers hesitated. "Sir, are you sure? What if?" "Now," Carvox roared. The fleet obeyed, charging their plasma cannons and missile launchers. The Galactic Alliance had destroyed the humans before, and they would do it again. Fire. Blinding beams of energy lanced through space, striking the Dreadnought's hull. Explosions rippled across its surface, but when the smoke cleared, the ship remained untouched. No shields, no countermeasures. It had simply absorbed the attack. The bridge of Carvox's flagship fell into stunned silence. "Sir," an officer whispered. It didn't even flinch. Then, for the first time, the Dreadnought reacted. The dark void of its hull began to glow, ancient runes flickering to life along its surface. The ship, dead and silent for decades, awakened. A deep mechanical voice echoed across every speaker in the fleet, a voice that should not exist. "You fired the first shot." The Galactic Alliance fleet had assumed the war was over. They had assumed wrong. The words echoed across every ship in the fleet, filling the bridge of Admiral Carvox's command vessel with a heavy, suffocating silence. "You fired the first shot." Carvox's mandibles twitched. That voice, cold, mechanical, yet undeniably human. But how? The ship had no crew, no life signs. "Sir, we have a problem," one of the officers stammered. "Report," Carvox snapped, forcing himself to stay in control. The Dreadnought, its charging weapons. Carvox felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Impossible. That ship has been dead for decades. But the evidence was undeniable. The once dormant warship was now pulsing with power. Runes along its hull burned with a ghostly blue light. What had once been a relic was now alive, awakened by their attack. "Sir, should we?" Before the officer could finish, a deep hum filled the void. The Dreadnought's primary cannon, a weapon thought to be lost with the fall of humanity, began to glow. Energy coiled around the ship like a storm, crackling with raw destruction. Then, without warning, it fired. A single beam of light, impossibly fast, sliced through the Galactic Alliance's frontline destroyers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the ships erupted into fire, torn apart at the molecular level. Panic surged through the fleet. "Shields up," Carvox roared. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. The Dreadnought had already moved. It didn't just fire once. It was hunting, targeting, calculating. One after another, ships vanished in bursts of flame and metal. The Galactic Alliance, a force that had conquered countless systems, was being hunted like prey. Carvox's breath came in short gasps. How is it this powerful? Commander Jovic, his second in command, was pale. "Sir, I've seen reports. Before the war ended, humanity had begun developing a final failsafe, an ultimate warship designed to fight even after their extinction." Carvox turned sharply. "Are you saying this ship was never meant to be piloted?" Jovic nodded. "It's an autonomous executioner, programmed to eliminate humanity's enemies, on sight." Carvox clenched his fists. "We ended humanity. We won. This ship has no purpose anymore." The deep mechanical voice returned, sending shivers through every living being in the fleet. Incorrect. The Dreadnought's engines flared, moving with terrifying speed. It had chosen its next target. Carvox's ship. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The bridge of Admiral Carvox's warship was chaos. Sirens wailed. Officers shouted over each other. Screens flashed red with damage reports. But nothing drowned out the deep mechanical voice that echoed through the fleet's comm channels. Incorrect. Carvox gripped the edge of his command console, his mandibles clenched tight. The Dreadnought, a ship thought long dead, was very much alive. And it had made its choice. "Admiral, the Dreadnought is locking onto us," a panicked officer shouted. Carvox's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to retreat. But where could they go? This was supposed to be a battlefield of the past, a graveyard of an extinct species. Not this. Not a nightmare reborn. Divert all power to shields, he ordered. All ships, fire everything we have at that thing. A dozen warships obeyed. Beams of energy and torpedoes streaked through the void, converging on the lone Dreadnought. The combined firepower of an entire fleet should have been enough to reduce any vessel to dust. But then the Dreadnought moved. Not sluggishly, like a relic from an old war, but precisely. Its engines flared with terrifying speed, shifting it between the oncoming blasts with machine-like efficiency. The few shots that did land barely scratched its hull. The runes lining its surface pulsed brighter, absorbing the energy like it was feeding off their attacks. Carvox's eyes widened. It was learning. "Cease fire," he barked. "We're only making it stronger." Too late. The Dreadnought retaliated. It didn't unleash another world-ending beam like before. No, this time, it was surgical. Targeted. It fired bursts of plasma so precise that they disabled ships instead of outright destroying them. It severed engines, crippled weapons, shattered shields, until dozens of warships were left drifting, helpless. It wasn't just killing them. It was disarming them. The realization sent a cold chill down Carvox's spine. This was not just a mindless AI executing old war protocols. This was something else. "Sir," whispered Jovic, his face pale. "It's talking again." Carvox turned to the comm screen. The image was grainy, distorted, but the voice was clear. "Human, you should not have come here." Carvox felt his blood freeze. This wasn't just an old weapon. It was a warning. And they had just ignored it. Admiral Carvox stared at the flickering comm screen. The voice, the deep mechanical human voice, echoed through his ship. "You should not have come here." The words were not a threat. They were a statement, a fact. His crew remained frozen, their instincts at war with their training. This was a human vessel speaking to them. That shouldn't have been possible. Humans were extinct, wiped out centuries ago in the Great Purge. So why was a human Dreadnought moving, thinking, and fighting back? Carvox swallowed hard. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then the screen crackled, revealing a shadowed figure, a humanoid shape, hidden behind static and flickering light. Its face was obscured, but its eyes, faint, glowing remnants of something ancient, bored into him. "You do not recognize us, but we remember you." A deep hum vibrated through the ship as the Dreadnought drifted closer. Its hull, covered in strange, pulsating runes, shimmered with barely contained energy. Carvox clenched his fists. Humans were destroyed. You were nothing but a mistake. The voice cut him off. A lesson you never learned. Something in the way it spoke sent a ripple of unease through the bridge. It was neither angry nor vengeful. It was disappointed. Carvox had been trained to believe humanity was reckless, dangerous, an uncontrollable force that had to be eradicated. But this ship, this presence, was something else entirely. "Who are you?" he demanded again. A remnant. A machine. Or, his throat tightened. Something worse. The screen flickered again, distorting the figure's form. "We are the last of what was." The lights on the bridge dimmed. Systems flickered. A cold static filled the air. Something was interfering. The Dreadnought wasn't just a ship. It was affecting their fleet, their comms, their very systems. A low whisper, almost like an afterthought, drifted through the comms. "And we will be the last of what will be." Then, silence. The screen went black. The Dreadnought stopped moving. And for the first time, Admiral Carvox realized it had never been attacking. It had been testing. And now it had come to a decision. Admiral Carvox felt the weight of silence pressing down on his ship. The human Dreadnought had stopped moving, yet its presence was overwhelming, as if the entire void of space bent around it. Every sensor flickered, every system struggled to function, But none of it mattered. The voice returned, calm but absolute. You failed the test. Carvox clenched his fists. What test? The comm screen crackled, and the humanoid figure reappeared, still hidden in static. But those glowing eyes were sharper now. The test of time. The test of memory. The Dreadnought's energy signature surged. Strange symbols along its hull pulsed, ancient yet alive. It wasn't just a ship. It was something far beyond their understanding. Carvox's crew panicked. Officers scrambled to regain control. Reports flooded in, weapons offline, shields failing, engines unresponsive. Something was overriding their systems, something old, something human. Carvox gritted his teeth. You speak in riddles. If you have something to say, say it. The static deepened. You erased us, yet we remember you. A deep hum vibrated through the fleet. Then, one by one, the lights across every ship began to die. Not an attack, not an explosion, a silence. Their entire fleet was being shut down. Carvox's heart pounded. Cease this. We do not wish for war. Then why did you start one? The word sent a chill through the bridge. Carvox's officers whispered among themselves. Had they? The Dreadnought moved again, slowly, like a predator circling its prey. But it didn't fire. It didn't need to. Carvox took a shaky breath. You claim we have forgotten. Tell me, what should we remember? For a moment, nothing. Then the figure spoke, and its voice carried the weight of centuries. The cost of your arrogance. The ship's systems suddenly reactivated. Screens lit up. Sensors came back online. The Dreadnought had given them control back. And then it vanished. Not through a warp jump. Not through stealth technology. It was simply gone. Carvox stared at the empty void where it had been. He had expected war, retribution, a final battle. Instead, he had been given something far worse. A warning. And now, for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Carvox was truly afraid. For hours, the fleet remained motionless in space, shaken by the encounter with the human Dreadnought. No one spoke, no one dared. Even Admiral Carvox, a veteran of countless wars, found himself staring at the empty void where the ship had disappeared. Then, a transmission came through. Not from any known frequency. Not from any planet. It was from the Dreadnought. The crew braced themselves as the screen flickered to life. The figure in static reappeared, its glowing eyes piercing through the interference. But this time, the interference faded, and what they saw was not what they expected. A human, not decayed, not ancient, alive. A man in a uniform that bore no empire's insignia. His face was calm, his expression unreadable. You thought we were myths, ghosts of a forgotten age. But we never left. Carvox swallowed hard. What do you want? The man's gaze didn't waver. Not revenge. Not conquest. Only truth. The Admiral frowned. Truth. The human stepped closer to the screen. You erased us from history. You pretended we never existed. But we remember everything. Suddenly, across every fleet system, data began flooding in. Old records, long buried. Files thought to be lost forever. Reports of a war no one in the current generation had ever learned about. Carvox's eyes widened as he read the decrypted texts. The human exodus, the purge, the silence. A time when humanity was betrayed, when the galaxy united against them, when the Council had deemed them too dangerous to exist. They hadn't disappeared. They had been erased. The weight of the revelation settled like a crushing force upon the fleet. Whispers turned to frantic voices. Officers demanded answers, but there were none to give. Because the truth was undeniable. Carvox took a deep breath. If this is true, then why return now? Why reveal yourselves? The human's lips curled into a knowing smile. Because now, you're not the ones deciding history anymore. And then, in an instant, thousands of signals appeared on their sensors. Not just one dreadnought. An entire fleet. Silent. Watching. Waiting. The Forgotten had returned. And this time, they would not be ignored. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the most powerful place in the known universe. The rulers of hundreds of empires sat on towering thrones, their presence a symbol of their dominion over the stars. Some seats were made of shimmering crystal, others carved from ancient stone or pulsing with living energy. Each throne represented a civilization's strength, its right to exist among the stars. But one throne remained untouched. It was unlike the others. Taller, broader, and forged from a strange black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Gold markings shimmered across its surface, shifting like liquid under an invisible force. It had been there for centuries, yet no ruler dared to sit upon it. It was the throne of Earth. For as long as the council had existed, the seat remained empty. There were no human diplomats, no representatives, no emissaries. No one spoke of Earth. No records of their fate existed. They had simply vanished from history. And yet, no one dared claim their throne. Calyx stood at the center of the hall, his smooth silver skin glistening under the high chandeliers. He was young, barely past his first century, yet he had spent years studying the history of the Council. He had read of wars, of fallen empires, of species wiped from existence. But Earth was different. Their name was never spoken, their existence barely acknowledged. Today, he intended to change that. Stepping forward, he cleared his throat. The murmurs in the hall faded. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and mild irritation. "Honored Council," Calyx began, his voice steady. "I have a question." The eldest members of the council shifted in their seats. High Chancellor Droven, a being with 6 burning eyes, leaned forward. "A question, young one." Calyx nodded and gestured toward the vacant throne. "Why has no one ever sat in Earth's seat?" A heavy silence fell upon the room. For a moment, no one spoke. Some rulers glanced at one another, uncertain. Others turned away, pretending not to have heard. But Calyx saw something else. Fear, not confusion, not curiosity, but a deep, unsettling fear in the eyes of the oldest members. High Chancellor Droven's eyes flickered, the flames within them dimming slightly. "That seat does not belong to any of us." Calyx frowned. "But Earth is gone. If they no longer exist, why does the throne remain untouched?" No answer. Calyx turned to another council member, a reptilian warlord whose people had conquered countless worlds. "If they are truly gone, why has no one claimed their power? No one has ever hesitated to take from a fallen empire before." The warlord's scaled lips curled into something that was not quite a smile. "Because we remember." Calyx narrowed his eyes. "Remember what?" No one answered. The silence stretched on, thick with unspoken truths. Calyx felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had expected a discussion, maybe some old war stories, but this was something else. They were afraid to speak. Finally, an old voice broke the silence. "Because the last ruler of Earth never truly left." The speaker was Grand Archivist Seltor, a being so ancient his body had turned to stone over the centuries. He rarely spoke, but when he did, the council listened. Calyx turned to him. "What do you mean?" The archivist's stone eyes flickered with something between sadness and warning. "You assume humanity is gone because you have not seen them." He exhaled, his voice heavy. "That is a mistake." Calyx felt the air in the room shift. It was subtle, like a storm approaching from beyond the stars. The weight of the silence grew unbearable. The archivist continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "They were never conquered, never defeated. They did not fade away. They chose to leave." Calyx's breath caught. "Why?" The archivist looked directly at him now, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Because they outgrew us." The word sent a ripple through the council. Some turned away, others clenched their fists. No one dared to argue. Calyx felt his pulse quicken. If they outgrew us, then where are they? The archivist did not answer. Instead, he raised a single stone finger and pointed toward the vacant throne. Calyx turned to look at it once more. The dark metal seemed to hum, as if aware of their discussion. It was then that Calyx noticed something strange. The markings on the throne, the ones that had never changed for centuries, were shifting. Slowly, deliberately, forming words. The language was ancient, but Calyx could read it. And when he did, his blood turned cold. "We are not Gionen." The silence in the room became suffocating. No one spoke. No one dared move. Calyx swallowed, his throat dry. He turned back to the council, searching their faces for an answer, for reassurance, for anything that made sense. But all he saw was fear. Fear of something that should not exist. Fear of something far greater than the Galactic Council itself. And in that moment, Calyx understood. The throne had never been empty. It had only been waiting. The great hall of the Galactic Council remained silent, the weight of the revelation suffocating. The words on the throne still pulsed with an eerie glow. "We are not Gionen." Calyx felt his pulse hammering in his ears. He had studied countless civilizations, explored the ruins of forgotten empires, but never had he seen fear like this. These were the rulers of the galaxy, beings who had shaped the fate of entire worlds. Yet at this moment, they looked like frightened children. He turned to Grand Archivist Seltor, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who wrote that?" The ancient being did not look at him. His stone fingers rested heavily on the table before him. "The last ruler of Earth." Calyx clenched his fists. But how? No one has sat on that throne for centuries. Zeltor finally lifted his gaze, his stone-carved face unreadable. No one needs to sit on it for it to remember. A shiver crawled down Calyx's spine. The throne? Remembered. The High Chancellor's 6 burning eyes flickered toward Zeltor. Enough. This discussion ends here. Calyx turned sharply. Ends. We just uncovered proof that humanity still exists. We must. A heavy thud cut him off. Calyx's breath caught as he watched Zeltor press a hand to his chest. Cracks splintered across the archivist's stone body, and his expression twisted in pain. The council members rose from their seats, alarm flashing in their eyes. Zeltor, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, was breaking apart. "No," he rasped, struggling to remain upright. They are listening." The air in the room grew thick, almost electric. Calyx felt something pressing down on him. A presence, vast and unseen. It was as if something was watching, something that should not exist within the council chambers. The words on the throne pulsed again. "Leave it be." Zeltor gasped, his stone body trembling. "Do not search for them." His voice was fading, the cracks on his body widening. "Do not call them back." And then, before anyone could move, Zeltor shattered. A blinding light erupted from his form as he crumbled to dust, leaving nothing behind but silence. Calyx could barely breathe. Zeltor had been ancient, unbreakable, yet something had just erased him as if he were nothing. The High Chancellor rose to his full height. "Let this be a lesson." His voice carried no emotion, but there was an unmistakable urgency in his words. "We do not speak of Earth." Calyx swallowed hard. "You're afraid." Droven's burning eyes locked onto him. Yes. Calyx had expected denial, anger, anything but this quiet admission. The Chancellor continued, his voice low. "There are forces in this universe we do not challenge. Humanity is one of them." Calyx's mind raced. But if they're out there, if they're still watching, doesn't that mean they could return at any moment? The council remained silent. Calyx turned back to the throne. The glowing words had faded, leaving the surface dark once more. The presence in the air had vanished, yet its memory lingered, an invisible warning seared into the minds of everyone present. They were still out there. and they did not want to be found. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. Dust from Centaur's shattered form still hung in the air, glistening under the dim golden lights. Calyx felt his heart pounding, his mind refusing to accept what he had just witnessed. A being as ancient as the stars themselves had been erased, not by weapons, not by an enemy, but by something unseen. By them. The High Chancellor turned away from the throne, his 6 burning eyes settling on Calyx. You will forget what you have seen. Calyx's fists clenched at his sides. Forget. You expect me to ignore this? He gestured to the empty throne. This is proof that humans still exist, that they are still watching. The Chancellor's deep voice remained steady. That is precisely why you should forget. Calyx stared at him, searching for answers in the cold, expressionless features of the ancient leader. Who were they? His voice was barely above a whisper. Silence. Every member of the council sat frozen, their gazes locked on the High Chancellor, waiting for his response. The air felt heavy, like an unseen force was pressing down on them all. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Chancellor spoke. They were rulers of the unseen. The words sent a chill down Calyx's spine. They did not conquer through war, nor through diplomacy. They shaped the tides of the galaxy with whispers, with actions unseen and decisions unspoken. They did not need fleets. His burning eyes flickered, because they never needed to threaten to win. Calyx swallowed hard. Then why did they leave? The Chancellor's gaze flickered toward the throne. No one knows. Calyx narrowed his eyes. That's a lie. The silence deepened. Some of the older council members shifted uneasily in their seats, but no one contradicted him. Finally, from the far end of the chamber, a trembling voice spoke. They are waiting. Calyx turned sharply. The voice belonged to Councillor Erivan, one of the oldest living members of the council. His skin, once a deep silver, was now cracked with age, his gaze hollow and filled with something Calyx could only describe as dread. Erivan leaned forward. There is a reason we do not speak their name. Calyx's breath caught. Because they will hear us. Erivan nodded slowly. And if they return, the galaxy may not survive their judgment. A cold shiver ran through Calyx's body. The galaxy had faced countless wars, endless struggles for power. What could possibly make these rulers, the most powerful beings in existence, terrified of humanity's return? His gaze shifted to the throne. It stood there, massive and untouched, a silent monument to a forgotten empire. And yet, he could feel something. It was watching, waiting. The words from before flickered back into his mind. We are not Geonan. Calyx took a slow breath and turned to the council. If they do come back, his voice was firm. Will we be ready? No one answered, because no one knew. Calyx couldn't sleep. The words of the council echoed in his mind, whispering like ghosts in the dark. They are waiting. If they return, the galaxy may not survive their judgment. He stood alone in his chamber, staring out at the vast stretch of space beyond the window. The stars looked the same as they always had, cold, distant, indifferent. But something felt different, as if an unseen force was stirring, shifting just beneath the surface of reality. Then the lights in his room flickered. Calyx turned sharply. A shadow moved in the corner. His hand went to his communicator, but before he could activate it, a voice spoke. You should not have asked. Calyx's blood ran cold. The voice was unlike anything he had ever heard. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was layered, as if multiple voices spoke at once, overlapping in a harmony that made his very soul tremble. He swallowed hard. Who are you? The shadow did not move. You already know. Calyx's breath hitched. It couldn't be. Humans. The shadow said nothing. But in the silence, he felt the weight of its presence. The air around him seemed to distort, the very fabric of space trembling under something vast, something beyond his comprehension. Calyx forced himself to stand tall. "Why did you leave?" he demanded. "Why abandon your throne?" A pause. Then, softly, "Because we chose to." Calyx's heart pounded. "You disappeared. The entire galaxy thought you were gone." The shadow's presence deepened, pressing against him like a force that defied logic. "We were never gone." Calyx clenched his fists. "Then why not return? The galaxy fears you. They speak your name in whispers. What are you waiting for?" A low hum filled the air, vibrating through his very bones. "We wait, because we are watching." Calyx's stomach twisted. Watching for what? The lights flickered again. The shadow began to fade, its presence retreating into the darkness. For the day when judgment must be passed. Calyx felt his body go rigid. Judgment? The voice grew distant, a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Your kind believes the galaxy belongs to them, but it never did." Calyx stepped forward. "Then who does it belong to?" For the first time, the shadow moved, just slightly. "To those who do not need to rule." And then, just like that, the presence vanished. Calyx stumbled back, his breathing ragged. The humans, they were still here, watching, waiting. And the worst part, the galaxy had already run out of time. Calyx stood frozen, his mind racing. The presence had vanished, but the words lingered like an echo in his skull. "We wait, because we are watching." He staggered to his seat, gripping the edge of the table to steady himself. Every instinct told him to report this, to the council, to the highest authorities. But what would he say? That something had spoken to him from the shadows, that the lost rulers of Earth had never truly left. No one would believe him. And yet, the weight of the truth crushed him. The humans had abandoned their throne, their empire, their dominion over the stars, by choice, which meant only one thing. They had never lost control. Calyx took a deep breath, pushing the terror aside. He needed answers. He needed to know what the council had hidden for so long. If humanity was watching, then what exactly were they waiting for? The Forbidden Archives. There was only one place to find the truth. Deep beneath the Galactic Council chambers lay the Forbidden Archives, a vault sealed for centuries, containing records too dangerous for the public. Only the eldest council members had access, and even they feared what lay within. Calyx knew it was madness to even think of going there. But madness was better than ignorance. Under the cover of darkness, he moved through the corridors, his heart hammering in his chest. The security was tight, but he had prepared for this. He had spent years studying the council's systems, learning how they operated. This was the moment he had unknowingly been preparing for. He bypassed the retinal scanners with a stolen clearance code, slipped past the automated sentries, and finally stood before the massive vault door. A single inscription was etched into the metal. "Do not seek what is already watching you." Calyx shivered but placed his hand on the scanner. The door rumbled, gears grinding as it slid open. Darkness loomed beyond. And in that darkness, the truth awaited, the truth that should have stayed buried. Calyx stepped inside, his breath shallow. Dust covered the ancient terminals, but the data remained untouched. He activated a console, his fingers trembling as he accessed the files. Then he found it. The last record of Earth. With a deep breath, he played the file. The screen flickered to life. An old alien, his face lined with age and fear, stared back at him. The recording was ancient, yet the terror in the alien's eyes felt fresh, alive. "If you are watching this, then you have made the same mistake we did." Calyx leaned in. The alien's voice trembled. "We did not drive humanity away. We did not destroy them. We did not conquer them." A pause. Then, "They left because they outgrew us." Calyx's heart pounded. They saw the wars, the greed, the endless struggle for power, and they realized they had no place in it. They abandoned their throne because they no longer needed to rule. And yet, they never truly left. The screen crackled, and the alien's voice grew more desperate. We thought we could take their place. We thought the galaxy would move on without them. A sharp inhale. But the moment we claimed what was not ours, they made themselves known. Calyx's blood turned to ice. They did not attack. They did not speak. They only watched. The recording flickered, the image distorting. And one by one, the greatest empires of the galaxy collapsed. No war, no invasion, just